What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we're going to be having another look at Flamewar. You see, Flamewar is one of my favourite cards in the Transformers trading card game. It just doesn't see much play. Now, we had a look a couple days ago at Arcee, and when we had a look at Arcee, I told you guys that there was actually an article which the Transformers Trading Card Game official Facebook group published, where they mentioned some cards that they assumed would be better, that they thought would see play, but for reasons, some reason or other, ended up not seeing very much play at all. And Flamewar was one of them. Now, we looked at Arcee a couple days ago, that was one of the other ones. But one of the things that has always intrigued me about Flamewar is what if you could play 5 of them? Because you see, we have a rule in the Transformers trading card game that you are only allowed to play one of each character card. Now, if we look at something like Bumblebee, you can play 3 Bumblebee, as long as it's 1 Bumblebee Brave Warrior, 1 Bumblebee Courageous Scout, and 1 Bumblebee Legendary Warrior. If you play one of each of the 3, you're golden, but you cannot play 2 Bumblebee Brave Warrior. But if you move into a draft format, and I did a video about draft formats, I'll pop a link in the description, then you're free to double up on characters. And Flamewar has always struck me as one of these, that if you could just play 5 of them, it might make for a phenomenal deck. You see, Flamewar is a 5 cost, and you can have 25 stars worth of Transformers in a deck. So you could play 5 of these, and it would add up to 25 stars. And the thing is, right, the stats on Flamewar, they ain't great. 10 health is lower than the average of 12, 1 defense is lower than the average of 2, 3 attack is lower than the average of 4. The stats are bad, but it's mitigated by the fact that it's so gosh darn cheap. But what's ridiculous about Flamewar is the skills. When you're in bot mode, each of your characters has tough 1. That means that you flip 1 extra card when you're defending. And when you flip into alt mode, each of your characters gets bold 1 until the end of the turn. And what really intrigues me about playing multiple Flamewar is that you could then have this ability many times. So if you had all of your Flamewar and they were all in bot mode, each of your characters would have tough 5 because it would stack. So all of a sudden now, you're not flipping 2 battle cards when you're defending. You're flipping 7. And bearing in mind, right, that's 7 before you muck around with anything else, which we'll look at in a moment. And similarly, when you flip them all into alt mode, each of your characters gets bold 1 per Flamewar, which means if you flip all of them at the same time, bold 5. Which means you're not flipping 2 battle cards when you attack, you're flipping 7. Now at this stage we need to mention rollout, because of course flipping all of your characters in one go needs to be done using rollout. That's the only way we can really do it. You go from bot mode to alt mode, which is great because when you flip into alt mode, that's when you get this. And this is what intrigues me about Flamewar. I could have done a video, and I almost did, showing you why it's not seeing more play, but honestly, it's the same reason Arcee's not seeing much more play. It's a really good 5 cost with really good abilities, but at the moment we're at that stage of the format where everyone's playing a Dinobot deck with only Dinobots in. Or everybody is playing a Planes deck with only Planes in. Or everyone is playing an Insecticons deck with only Insecticons in. Or they're just playing double primes. We're not looking for tech characters at the moment. And we can't make a motorcycle deck, because although we've got Arcee and Chromia as well as Flamewar, we don't have any support. There is no motorcycle deck out there. It doesn't work like Dinobots works and Insecticons works. But like I've said, we kind of did that video with Arcee. But with Flamewar, I am intrigued by the idea of playing quintuple Flamewar. Also, I love the idea that you can only play 3 of each action card, but you could potentially play 5 characters. And look, in a draft, this could happen. If we're playing in a draft with 25 stars and we open enough packs drafting, this could legitimately happen. So, what we would end up with are weak characters with fairly bad stats, but essentially tough 5 or bold 5 depending on where we are. And what I love about this is you could match it to the deck. So if you're playing something like a Dinobots deck, which is maybe going hyper aggressive because they've got Grimlock that gives you bold and they've got Dino Chomp that gives you bold, you can try and counter that by going tough. Go 7 tough, by which I mean tough 5 plus the 2 usual battle cards you flip, so 7. But then, of course, we've got body armor. Body armor gives you tough 3 if you put it onto a melee character. Flamewar is not a melee character, which is really upsetting. It is a specialist, more on that in a moment. But there are things you can do for tough. You could play reinforced plating, which gives you tough 2. That's kind of nice. Or improvise shield that gives you tough 1 while also giving you 2 orange pips, which is really nice because it gives you that mixture of tough to defend, but also the double orange pips in terms of attacking. Weirdly enough, there are no action cards that give you extra tough, which is super weird. Now, in terms of bold, there is an action card. We've got Supercharge, and essentially, what we do here is we go, right, we just want to swarm. Because the other thing here is that with a 5-cost character, you've got 5 of them, which means you're getting extra attacks. Every round, so to speak, Double Primes gets 2 attacks, you'd get 5. So if you just go full on into tough, you need to play rollout. Now, if you want to play Supercharge and rollout in the same turn, might I suggest Brainstorm? It's the only way you can actually play 2 actions on 1 turn. I mean, there are some characters like Optimus Prime that can do so, but I mean in terms of with a quintuple Flamewar deck, it would be the only way you could play 2 at once. And then you just take advantage of this and you basically go, you know what? I know I have weak characters. I understand that I've got weak characters and they're going to go down fairly easily. But maybe if I just go hyper bold, I'll lose 1 or 2, but I'll also get so many attacks off with so much bold. I mean, Dino Chomp gives a Dinobot bold 5, but you got to discard your entire hand. This would allow rollout to give all your Flamewar bold 5. That's pretty nice. And I think you could make a deck here. The awkward thing would be trying to decide the pips. Because you would have, depending on where you were, tough 5 or bold 5. Now, one argument here is just go tough. Make sure you go all blue pips, essentially all blue pips. You've already got tough 5, so just really take advantage of blue pips. So that essentially you're hitting 7 blue pips, on average, probably a little bit more, every time you defend. So essentially that defense of 1 ends up as a defense of 8. And then of course you're throwing some force field in as well. And your opponent just essentially is really struggling to get KOs on your Flamewar. That would be one way to go. The other way to go is just to go full orange and full bold and just try and rush your opponent. Play a really, really hyper aggro deck, but do remember you've got a defense of 1 and you've got a health of 10. That could backfire against other aggressive decks. Or you can try and make a mix. I worry that if you tried to make a mix, you would end up doing not enough. You would not have quite enough blue to take advantage of your tough, and not enough orange to take advantage of your bold, and then really you're playing free rollout and you only truly get the full effect of the bold 5 when you play rollout, but you're only playing free in your deck, and you end up in some weird, awkward middle ground. It's not the easiest way to work it, but tough 5 is just something we don't see in the Transformers trading card game. We just don't see tough 5. It just doesn't happen. Bold 5 does happen on stuff like Dino Chomp, and then you got stuff like Grimlock that gives you tough 3, which does help quite a lot. And you can get up to bold 5. I mean, you can get tough 5. It's just really difficult. I mean, something like Starscream Scheming in Command in bot mode has tough 1. Tough 1! That's only 1. You can get 5. Now, I think this would be a super fun deck. If you ask me hand on heart, I think defense and tough 5 would probably be the way to go here. But I would love to play around with this. As a side note, what about the other 5-cost characters? Could this work with them as well? No. Arcee's a 5-cost character, but you got Pierce equal to your attack. but you're a 9 health with 1 defense. You're not getting the tough. So you got 5 Arcee, but they're all going to go down fairly quickly. The 5 of them piercing would be fun. I just don't see it being as good as Flamewar. Although, ironically, a quintuple Arcee deck would be good against a quintuple Flamewar deck, because you could essentially ignore all the tough. The other one we've got here is one of our Insecticon friends. Yeah, it's Kickback. And Kickback could actually work. Now, we don't have time to get into it today, but essentially, Kickback could be a hyper aggro deck, because when you attack in bot mode, you flip 2 more battle cards for each other Insecticon with which you began the game. So you'd actually be flipping 10 battle cards when you attack before you get into stuff like Supercharge. So you could play an aggro quint Kickback deck. And then you could also really take advantage of Swarm, which lets you flip a battle card for every Insecticon with which you started the game, and again, that would be 5. And for each orange pip you hit, and it would be a full orange pip, like the Insecticon deck we looked at the other day, link in the description, you get to put a damage on one of your opponent's characters, though they choose. So actually, a quintuple Kickback deck could be kind of fun, although 1 defense and 9 health, it's even worse than Flamewar. Though it might be fun to try. This is all hypothetical at the moment. In a draft, this could happen. I mean, you would have to draw 5 Flamewar and 1 person would have to get them all. But it could happen, it could happen. Whereas in Constructed, this couldn't happen. But firstly, I wanted to talk about Flamewar, given that it's been pointed out by the Transformers official Facebook group as one that should be seeing more play. And I wanted to just look at the idea of a quintuple Flamewar deck. Honestly, this is an idea that's been rattling around in my head since I first saw Flamewar and realized I could only play 1. But I want to hear from you guys at this stage. Do you think this could be fun? Do you think it's a little bit silly? Would you like to see this in a tournament? Let me know, ladies and gentlemen. Go nuts. All I ask is that you respect the most important rule of all. Be nice, would you? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy for some more future ramblings. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.